This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Will Andy Murray take Ruby's place in rhyming slang?
Answer me this, answer me this.
What is there to celebrate about Kool and the Gang?
Answer me this.
Good times, of course.
Answer me this. Helen and Ollie, answer me this.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Answer Me This. I've just been on holiday. Martin the Soundman's just been on holiday.
I sure have.
Ollie Mann has not just been on holiday.
No, but I have just bought a house.
Woo!
Which is pretty exciting. Some of you will be getting deja vu at that statement because you'll remember that at the start of the last series I said that I just bought a house. Actually, what happened is we had our offer accepted.
Don't go into it. I mean, I'll just fade out on you describing what happened.
I'll tell you what I've learned, Helen, over the past 3 weeks whilst we've been away. I've learned that all solicitors care a lot less about the thing that you're buying than you do.
I'm sorry that it took you a practical experiment to discover that information.
I've also learned that garden centres are actually interesting when you own a garden. I never knew.
Really? Have you got a swinging bench yet? Because I don't have a garden. I don't have a garden. I would really like a swinging bench.
I'm thinking about getting one of these things like a totem pole with a hammock hanging off it.
Right.
But it's quite dangerous. I tried it out in the garden centre and I nearly killed an old woman who was coming in the door with it.
The trouble with the hammock is the entrance and exit can be hazardous.
And how was your holiday, Helen?
Oh, it was jolly nice, Ollie. And in fact, we bumped into an Answer Me This listener as we were going through the security checks at Heathrow. Hello to Rich, who was on his way to Prague as Martin was getting frisked for all of his ammo.
He said, "Are you the Zoltzwicks of South London?"
Oh, that's a nice way to ask.
Said, "Step into the private room, please." Full cavity search.
And of course, listeners, although we were away, we put out that album we threatened to do. It actually happened.
Of course, our threats always happen. So a lot of you should be quaking right now.
So yeah, the Answer Me This holiday album is out now. So thank you very much to everyone who has bought it.
And financed our holidays.
Yes. It is an hour of us answering your questions about holidays.
Which, given the season, in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, should be of use.
So if you would like to hear about my experiences of being forced into sex on the beach in Cancun...
Yes, you actually do want to hear that. It's quite a shocking expose.
Or just what in hell a utilidor is.
Disneyland, what lies beneath.
All of this is revealed in the Answer Me This holiday album. It's out now. Go to answermethispodcast.com/holiday if you would like to buy it.
By doing so, you keep the podcast going.
That's right, yeah.
It's very altruistic of you to buy it.
Yes.
And it's not that much outlay, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, so it's £2.49 on iTunes, and it's £5.49 on Amazon. It's not our fault.
It's not our fault. They set the prices, and they must think that their customers are very well-to-do.
Yes.
As Australian and Japanese iTunes as well, who've racked up the price, they must think everyone living in Australia and Japan is sitting on a gold mine.
So not our fault. Don't ask us about the price. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
But we do appreciate it. And the exciting thing was, we've got to our highest ever chart position.
In the music album charts, by the way.
Yeah.
Which means we are pretty much, Sean Paul?
Well, this time, Answer Me This Holiday got to number 14 in the UK Top 20 album chart, albeit only for an afternoon. But we were there.
That's fine.
Sandwiched between Robbie and Rihanna.
Really?
It's a lot of people's fantasy. Well, whilst we're talking of Matters Holiday, here is an appropriately summary question. It is from Eric from Philadelphia, the artisanal cream cheese region of the world, who says...
That's not artisanal, it's made out of massive factories.
That's right, I was being ironic.
Oh.
I have no idea, he says, if you have ice cream trucks in the UK.
We do.
He does actually explain, if anyone's never seen one before. He says these are trucks that drive around and play music to compel children to scream at their parents until they wave the truck down and buy a neon-flavoured treat.
Isn't that pretty much the plot of that film where Rutger Hauer terrorised everybody from a truck?
Neon-flavoured treat is a confusing phrase as well, isn't it? Because, of course, neon's a colour, not a flavour.
And it's one of the chemical elements, so maybe that does have a flavour, but probably not one that children should be eating.
Well, I don't think it does. It's a noble gas.
Oh.
Here in the UK, I would say the ice cream is as likely to be a beige treat or a bright white treat.
Or pinkish.
Yeah, but not neon, really.
No.
I mean, the ice lollies are occasionally neon.
There used to be one that was swirls of neon, and it was pretty disgusting when you actually tried to eat it.
It's funny, though, isn't it? I don't know at what age that kicks in, that fear of things that are so ridiculously artificial they blind you.
For me,
what age is that?
I think it was probably once I was in my teens.
Yeah, but early teens. Like, I reckon
12,
even at 14,
maybe, yeah.
I realise
Really?
this can't be a good thing I'm putting
I
in my
would
body.
say like 31.
Yeah. So, Helen, answer me this. When did ice cream trucks first show up?
Well, usually around the time when the kids are getting out of school.
Yeah, clever like that, aren't
Yeah.
they? Does that make it a good job in terms of you don't have to get up till late in the day, or actually to sort of stock an ice cream truck and keep it up to date and everything? Is it a full-time 9 to 5?
I don't know. I'd imagine it is a harder job than the fun exterior would hint at, because also
it's a freezer on wheels. If you think about the logistical difficulties of that, you've got to drive it, you've got to stock it up, you've got to go to the cash and carry, you've got to sort out your plot with the council. Actually, it's not that much fun, is it?
And you've got to listen to the annoying tune all day. You're stuck in a very hot little van because to make it cold, there's all this hot air being pumped out of the appliances.
You've got to talk to kids all day as well.
No one's going to have the right change either.
No.
So,
and I mean, although your profit's good on each item, you're still turning over £1, aren't you? It's not. It's not glamorous, is it? It's not big money. You
know the trend for food trucks that is trying to grab hold in London, but it's generally too rainy most of the year.
This is sort of an LA thing, isn't it? They've tried to make happen in King's Cross.
It's very big in Portland, actually.
Yeah, big in Portland, big in many towns in the States. Ice cream trucks, or vans as we call them in the UK, are essentially the precursor to the food van revolution, aren't they?
Yeah, I suppose they are. Although those food trucks tend not to be in the same places as ice creams, because they are sort of the same sort of thing. And actually at music festivals you see ice cream vans and people selling hot dogs and kebabs and burritos.
I think there's a sort of adult-child split there, isn't there? Like food trucks are meant to be a bit more hip and grown up.
I would kill for a well-made cocktail in a park. if next to the ice cream van, I'm sure there's all sorts of licensing issues with this, but if they could have a beer van, I mean, I guess there's all sorts of problems with the kids queuing up to it.
Well, you say that, Ollie, you say that, but recently in Crystal Palace, right next door to the sweet shop, there has opened a double-fronted bong shop. And that's just up the way from the ice cream shop as well.
Is the sweet shop called Slippery Slope?
It's called Start Them Early.
You would be worried, wouldn't you, about sending your kids out to get some rhubarb and custard?
So obviously the laws are less stringent than we might have hoped.
Well, I'm welcoming that. I'm saying as an adult, I'd like to buy my child
a bong,
a flake, 99, and by myself a Bloody Mary.
In a way, that's the reversal of children now being a lot more welcome in pubs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
When you have your child, you'd like there to be a fully functioning wet bar in the nursery.
What I'm saying is let's all get stoned in playgrounds. That obviously seems like a really good thing to do.
Well, actually, that probably is quite a common activity amongst young and old.
Anyway, how did ice cream trucks start?
The advent of the ice cream van was quite an incremental process because it started out as bicycles and little horse-drawn carts. And then once vans were invented, people started driving around in vans because most people did not have home refrigeration then.
No. I imagine that going down quite well in Shoreditch, an ice cream bicycle.
Yeah, and in fact maybe ice cream is the next foodstuff due a revival because frozen yoghurt has had a while.
Yeah.
Macaroons have died down.
How do you feel about frozen yoghurt, or for Americans that are listening, frozen yoghurt?
I had a wonderful experience with it on our holiday in Seattle. We went to one of these places where they've got like 30 different flavours and it's self-serve soft scoop frozen yoghurt and it extrudes like a dog doing a really long tub.
All of the flavours look like a dog doing a poo into a little cup.
So anyway, apparently like the horse-drawn and bike-drawn ice cream things were around from early 19th century.
Yeah, people have always liked putting cold things in their mouth. Anyway,
I can't find out when the first mechanised ice cream van was, but I can find out when the first soft serve one was, which is the whippy type ice cream.
Right.
The soft serve van was the invention of two Irish brothers called William and James Conway, who put an ice cream freezer and a generator in a Chevrolet panel truck, and they went around selling green ice cream on St. Patrick's Day in Philadelphia in 1956.
No, it's actually from Philadelphia, like Eric.
It's remarkable, really, that there's not some kind of monument that Eric would have observed in his hometown of Philadelphia.
Catherine from Cardiff. Helen and Ollie, answer me this. I'm watching Wimbledon. It's very sunny, and lots of people have baseball hats on. And I'm wondering, why are they called baseball hats? And the second thing is, why do they have holes in the back? Is it purposely just so girls can put their ponytails through?
No, of course not. It's so they can adjust the size. We should come clean, Catherine, and tell you that baseball hats, or baseball caps as I would call them, are so called because they were worn by baseball players.
Yeah.
It's not such a surprise, really, is it? They're actually compulsory for baseball players to wear.
To keep the sun off their face.
Well, it's part of the uniform. Yeah. I think it's the only sport that has a compulsory non-helmet hat in the States. And that is partly why it's so popular, because baseball is popular.
Yeah, no, that's curious, because cricket, most of them wear hats to protect their faces, but it's not part of the official outfit. It doesn't have the insignia on it, does it?
And also there's an inconsistency of hat styles, as there used to be in baseball.
Oh, right.
Baseball players used to wear myriad hat styles, like pillbox hats, and different types of cap, and even floppy hats. No consistency at all. Some had long visors, like beaks. Some had short visors. Apparently there was a Victorian lady's bonnet that looked a lot like a baseball cap, actually, but you don't see people wearing them around. Why isn't Ashton Kutcher wearing those? So a company called the New Era Cap Company developed a fitted cap as the Major League Baseball official uniform hat, and that is called the 5950, and that was invented in 1954, and so it has been ever since.
Normally I'd associate hat wearing with sort of dandyish style, but to me, a baseball cap...
Gandhi? He never wore a baseball hat.
I don't know, just because we've not seen the pictures.
Good point.
A baseball cap is one of those items of clothing, like, I don't know, a branded T-shirt or like tracksuit bottoms that says, I do not care about the way I look. It's almost a very definitive male statement which says, I am not a dandy.
I think one of the great things about Wimbledon was the fact that some slightly more elegant hat styles were represented not only by the crowd, but on the court. There was one linesman who had the kind of dandyish cool flair of Samuel L. Jackson. He was also a probably middle-aged black man, and he was standing on the back line in the same shirt and trousers as everybody on the line.
Yeah, just a little bit cooler.
Looking cooler, and with a white Kangol cap.
Yeah, but the Kangol thing's interesting, isn't it? Because no one else can pull that off apart from Jackson.
Oh, excuse me.
David Cameron wearing a Kangol cap would be absurd.
My dad has a grey tweed Kangol cap, and he looks fine in it.
Yeah, but it's not as good as that one that you got him for Christmas that looks like a shark's eating his head.
No.
That's better.
But that is a bit fancy for every day.
Yeah, it is, yeah. My favourite baseball cap when I was a kid was a shiny black PVC one with NASA written on it in gold writing.
Well, that sounds like what Joan Collins or Cher would have worn.
Yes, it was a bit like that.
A bit sweaty, a PVC hat.
It was a bit sweaty. I never really liked caps. I never did. They always smell a bit funny when you've been wearing them too long. Smell of dead skin.
Well, that's because they're made of plasticky materials and your head's just sweating into them.
I wonder if Steven Spielberg still does that thing where he gets the name of the film he's just made put on his baseball cap. Because it works fine, doesn't it, for Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. It's a bit weird for Schindler's List and Lincoln, isn't it?
Amistad.
Yeah. Colour purple, all that seems a bit odd. I'm guessing that a baseball cap wasn't made for those films. And yet the E.T. one, iconic image, him with the E.T. baseball cap, standing next to E.T., which is odd because you're blurring the boundary there between fiction and real life, because if E.T. was real, he wouldn't be looking at an E.T. baseball cap because they wouldn't have made a film about him.
Well, unless it was a documentary.
Yeah.
And E.T. had stuck around or would come back, because he leaves at the end. Sorry, spoilers. But if he'd come back to see the premiere or something. Yeah.
Would be incredible access, though, wouldn't it? Stay with the alien from the moment he lands on Earth.
Yeah.
That's a good documentary.
Well, we've seen the Beyonce documentary.
Yeah.
Does he still wear the caps?
I think he's phased it out a bit now, but probably only, literally in his early 60s. I think he was wearing them for a long time.
Do you think he's gone to a more old man hat style, like a knotted hanky?
That would be nice, wouldn't it, if he suddenly turned up in a pork pie?
I got a question. Email your question to answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. Answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. Answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. Answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Close your eyes and take a ride with new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Awaken your senses with harmonies of sour and tangy fruit flavors. Picture the vibrant trio of mandarin, lemon, and lime as each flavor mingles to create a refreshing symphony. Pick up a pack and dive into new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Visit @TicTacUSA on social to share the good vibes.
Here's a question from Heidi, who says, Ollie, answer me this. Why do German people love David Hasselhoff?
I thought this was very well known, actually.
I don't know why.
You don't know why?
I assumed it was some kind of ironic thing.
No, I'm not sure Germans do irony, do they,
I thought maybe it was so ironic it had flipped around to being quite sincere love.
He sells more records there than anywhere else on Earth, and they have an affection for him.
That's not hard, because he probably sells 10 records in other countries.
Well, indeed. I mean, most people don't even know he's a singer. The reason is, as I've heard recounted in literally every interview I've ever seen him do, but I suppose if you don't have the same passing interest in the work of Hasselhoff that I do, perhaps you don't know this.
I don't know it.
No. The reason is, he was the guy who performed on the Berlin Wall shortly before the Berlin Wall came down.
Wow!
He did a New Year's concert there.
Did he precipitate the reunification of Germany?
Well,
they thought, we can't agree on much, but we can agree that both sides love the Hoff.
Well, actually, some would argue that he did. There is a book called something like Did David Hasselhoff End the Cold War? Which is obviously a tongue-in-cheek title, but what happened is he had a song called Looking for Freedom.
Is it a kind of remix of Looking for Linda by Hue and Cry, which is also out that year?
No, it's a terrible 80s power pop song.
So is Looking for Linda.
Yes. Well, I would say Looking for Freedom is 2 stars, Looking for Linda is 3.
Okay.
Anyway, Looking for Freedom was number 1 in Germany for 8 weeks over the summer.
Wow.
It was kind of the 1989 equivalent of Everything I Do It For You in Germany.
Yes, but that was 16 weeks.
Yes,
so
I know.
it's half
Well,
Everything
yes.
I Do For You.
Yeah.
Half is half Bryan Adams.
It was just Everything I Do, no parenthesis.
Okay.
And that was number 1 for 8 weeks in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, he lucked out with that title. I mean, if the title was Because I Loved You, no one would have given a sod.
Do you think it was not luck so much as calculation?
No, I don't think it was calculation, because it was an American album. It wasn't aimed at the German market.
I bet he had a nose to the German market. He thought, I reckon something's going to happen.
Smart. He's an American TV star. He's in Knight Rider.
Well, he seems like an idiot, but so does Boris Johnson. I don't think he's actually an idiot. I think it's a calculation. I think the Hoff might be the same.
Well, anyway, calculated or no, it became associated with East Germany's desire for reunification.
Yeah.
And so when David Hasselhoff was invited to perform in Berlin, he specifically asked if he could perform on the Berlin Wall, thinking they'd say no. But actually, he was so popular in Germany by that point that both chancellors of both East and West Germany agreed to allow David Hasselhoff to be the only musical act to perform on the Berlin Wall.
And so was he teetering on the wall? Because that's my vision.
Yeah, basically.
That's amazing.
And he said he performed this massive concert New Year's Eve, 100,000 people, lighters in the air, and essentially that moment became an iconic moment. And shortly afterwards, wall came down. David Hasselhoff associated with East Germany's freedom, hence a lot of people quite like him.
How did you know which way to look?
He probably just looked parallel to the wall, because then everybody gets one side of his face.
Well, when you go and see one of those plays where they've staged it so the audience
in
are
the
sitting
round.
on the stage,
Yeah.
it's usually the cheap seats on the stage, isn't it? Most of the time they perform out to the audience. They do the occasional bit where the people at the back can see. So I wonder, on that basis, he was probably getting more money from the West Germans, probably performing most of the time out west.
Well, West Germany was bigger.
Yeah.
And also East Germany was more austere, so they probably were okay with just getting his elbows or something. Although getting the back of Hasselhoff in 1989, you're probably getting a pretty spectacular mullet situation to admire.
Solid buns as well. And he's actually still exploiting this association he has with the Berlin Wall because he's actually still campaigning to save the bit that's left. Because apparently property developers in Germany want to take the last bit of the Berlin Wall and knock it down. He says, yes, it's a painful reminder of what went before, but by having that, you've got something for families to go and see and have a memorial at.
Is it big enough for him to do a gig on? He could sit on it like Humpty Dumpty with a guitar.
You've met the Hoff, haven't you?
I have.
When did you meet the Hoff?
David Hasselhoff was my first ever celebrity guest
Crush.
when I worked on... when I was a researcher on This Morning. And it was on my first ever day at work. And what it was is his video had come out. Well, I say video like it's something he officially licensed.
Was it Jump in My Car?
No. It was the video of him rolling around drunk on the floor to eat a hamburger.
Oh,
That video.
yeah. The sad video.
The sad video had hit YouTube about a week before this interview.
So was it an interview that had been pre-planned, or was
Yes.
he rep saving?
No, he was in to talk about his role in the West End musical Chicago. And so...
In which he lies on the ground and talks to a hamburger.
And so... In true kind of fluffy daytime TV style, all the PR people had sent in so many missives beforehand to me and the producer saying, look, whatever happens, you are not to ask him about being drunk on the floor. You're not to ask him about that video. It's a very painful situation with his daughter and blah, blah. And, I mean, of course, you can say that as often as you like to the researcher, but at the end of the day, it's a live TV programme. You can't stop the presenter asking whatever they want.
You try and rein in Fern Britain.
Exactly. And, Fern Britton's a pretty astute journalist. She knows what people want to hear, and she knows exactly how to ask it. So she just totally brilliant. This is why I don't understand when people kind of undermine her interviewing skill.
Yeah.
Fern Britton didn't ask directly, so she didn't technically go against the advice that had been issued to us by the lawyers and the PR people. What she did, this is in the middle of a fluffy interview about his thing on Chicago, she leant over to him and she said, now, David, I've been reading all sorts of things about you in the papers. And then she put her hand on his knee and then she said, how are you? Brilliant question. How are you?
That's creepy.
But he had a full-on, post-traumatic stress disorder flashback and just started talking all this psychobabble. He was like, I'm through it now and I'm fine. I hit a wall originally, but I've come over it. And it was a great interview, classic This Morning. But then, of course, he comes off the set and feels a bit exploited and what the hell just happened there?
Yeah.
And, of course, he takes it out on me because I'm the face of the production team and it was my first day.
What did he say to you?
Yeah, he came up to me and goes, hey, dude, you threw me a curveball out there. That was not cool. Yeah.
Dude, I'm a junior researcher. I don't produce this show, mate.
And then he still gave you a signed photo.
He did, yeah, because he's the Hoff.
He's like, I'm so upset, I'm only giving you like 2 lines of affectionate writing on your signed photo.
So what did he say? What was your comeback to the Hoff's wrath?
I said,
sorry, Sir
yes,
Hoff.
Exactly, yeah. I just said, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know what happened there, but I'll certainly try and find out for you. Something totally delivered like that. The bottom line is, in these situations, even with, a celebrity of some renown, you've still, you've got an Easter egg item to produce or whatever is coming up next, cookery demonstration or whatever. I had to get him out there as soon as possible.
You cannot linger on the This Morning set.
No, I've got a testicular examination to get in for 12:15.
Yeah, and there is 0 time for that tonal shift to happen. So physically, was the Hoff...
Strapping.
Was he strapping?
Yes, very strapping.
So,
dominated a room. Like no man I ever met working on This Morning, apart from, wait for it,
Philip Schofield.
Michael Parkinson.
Wow.
Yeah, who is surprisingly still, even at his age, really tall, really strapping, and you actually get in a way that you'd never get from watching his sycophantic interviews that he did when we were a bit older. But like, if you watch the interviews from the 70s where he's really confrontational, you understand that it's because he's actually a man that dominates a room and is a very strong personality, like dominating personality. You never got that, do you, from watching on telly because he's sitting down, yeah.
For the adverts, did they have to make a special scaled up free Parker pen so it looked normal size in his giant hands?
Quite possibly.
Helen and Ollie, answer me this. I don't want you to dance or kiss, but reveal your theories and take off your muzzle. Ponder my query and solve this puzzle. It's swell. Good golly, you crazy kids. Oh, Helen and Ollie, answer me this.
For the first time this series, listeners, please pay attention to our phone number.
02081235877.
And if you dial that number, you can leave us a question in your own voice.
That's right. Don't sound that excited. I mean, this is pretty straightforward technology these days, Helen. Radio stations have been doing phone-ins for years.
Yeah, all right. Well, you can Skype us as well. Do radio stations use Skype?
Actually, they're only just catching on.
They're rubbish at Skype.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hear who has been in touch with their voices.
Joseph Higgins. Helen Ollie, answer me this. Why is it when you go to a restaurant and order a pate dish, you get so few bits of toast or oatcakes? Like, I went for a meal last night, ordered a pate, it was lovely, but I only got 2-3 oatcakes and was forced to then just spoon the pate into my mouth like some sort of savage.
Yes.
What?
Why?
Yeah.
I'm
with you, brother.
He's so right. Testify.
We're all with you. Why are they not stacking up on the cheap ingredients, the cheap padding carbohydrate?
Yeah.
It's like when you have a load of cheese and 3 biscuits. Madness.
Could it be that they are, in some establishments, I think this happened to me in the Blue Legume on Upper Street the other week. I'm going to name and shame.
Blue Legume.
Yeah.
Pun.
That's a brilliant name.
Posh pun.
Yeah. In that restaurant, it's a nice place, by the way.
They gave you a bowl full of bolognese sauce and 3 strands of spaghetti.
I ordered a meze of some kind.
Yes.
It was a sort of Turkish-inspired thing. It was a bit of halloumi and some dip, basically.
Okay, nice.
And that came with 5 thin slices of French bread.
Eh?
And I was like, that's not going to get me through one of the dips. You've given me 3. Like, what am I supposed to do here? And I asked for some more, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm sorry, apologies to the Blue Lagoon if they didn't, but I
They
kind of had
probably
a plug.
did, because why would Ollie Man lie?
I'm pretty sure they put an extra £1.50 on the bill for ordering extra bread.
Oh,
so I
dickheads.
think that's what this might be about.
Restaurants. Honestly, be generous with the cheap things as goodwill, because then you'll get more...
More like to buy dessert, aren't you?
Yes, for God's sake.
Although
you filled yourself up on
this
bread.
is the thing, I'm playing devil's advocate here, you do fill yourself up on bread.
So could that be the reason?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, whatever the reason, the frustration is you order the extra bread and you sometimes can just anticipate that this is going to take 5 or 6 minutes to arrive.
Too late.
In that 6 minutes that it takes to reach your table, you've eaten too much of the pate without the bread, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because you go through the bread and then you start eating just forkfuls of pate without bread.
Yep.
And you feel like a pig.
Yeah, well, you are probably eating pureed pig.
It's pig butter, isn't it? I mean, you don't want pig butter without a bit of bread to put on.
You need the combination of textures.
There was a guy at our school called Anil Patel, and I used to call him Anal Pate. Just remembered that.
You monster! He's probably had years of therapy to do
No, he
that.
hasn't. No, he's a very sound guy, actually. He came up to me in a service station, weirdly, about
Called
2
you
months
Wally
ago.
Man, and that made him feel a lot better.
I haven't seen him for 10 years. No, he was a plumber, an electrician.
You're like, hey, Anal Pate!
He had a beautiful wife. No, I didn't actually call it to his face. I don't know if that makes it
that
better
makes
or
it
worse.
much
Yeah,
better.
it's probably fine. I was playing with the words in my mind, really. It wasn't personal to him.
I think I used to think pate was like the most luxurious thing on the earth.
Well, in the Midlands, it is the most luxurious thing in the world. Because that was what the rich kids smeared themselves with for winter instead of goose grease.
Pate, though, is one of those things that restaurants chuck into their set meals as well, isn't it? Because it's a bit cheaper for them as well. So actually, they're just swindling us all round with the pate.
Don't go for the pate. I think that's the easiest to get around for this. Here's a question from Elizabeth in Ealing, who says, the A1, the road, has lots of side-of-the-road establishments, services, truck stops, cafes, etc. Handy if you want to pull in for a cup of tea or slightly alarming-looking egg sandwich. But answer me this, Ollie. Why, just south of Grantham, between the turnings for Boothby Pagnell and Stoke Roachford, is there suddenly a side-of-the-road adult superstore? Do lots of people on long journeys suddenly think, I know what would improve this trip? Some PVC lingerie and a couple of DVDs.
Well, that clearly happens a bit, doesn't it?
Well, it's not everyone on long trips, because that shop is near to places such as Grantham, where people have needs. They might not have to go very far at all to visit.
Yeah, but why put it on what is essentially a motorway, the A1?
Well, Pulse and Cocktails, which is the store in question, they say it's a perfect location, as it has its own car park, which is ideal for customers who wish to visit the store by car, rather than go to the town centre one in Grantham, where they can go on foot. They keep saying, we have a large, discreet car park.
Are you sure the large, discreet car park thing isn't for people on long journeys who just want to pull in and have a wank?
I can't be sure, Martin. I've only been past this shop on trips up the A1. I have never stopped there, but the website handily includes directions of where to pull a Yui if you've gone past
what you were going to say there.
and you need to go back to the shop.
Yeah.
Which is thoughtful. And maybe they think people won't be ashamed to go in because you're unlikely to be seen by your next door neighbour popping into the sex shop if it's by a motorway than if it's next door to where you buy your groceries.
I think what we're saying is that the reasons that this store might appeal to both passing trade and predetermined visitors is one and the same. It is highly accessible, yet away from prying eyes.
Yes.
And that's the psychology of the Dirty Coat Brigade, isn't it? I want pornography now, I want as much of it as possible. I also don't want my mum to spot me going into the shop.
It's interesting that you chose mum for that.
Well, I suppose that was my thought last time I went into a dirty shop because the internet came along. I mean, the thing is, if you watch the body language of people outside a sex shop in Soho, say...
Well, they're more brazen, aren't they?
Their body language is them thinking, I'm okay with this, I'm cool with this, I'm an adult, yeah, I've been to an adult store, no problem.
We're in Soho, we all know what that's about.
Exactly, but if you watch them, the people that come out are very, very self-consciously thinking about what they're projecting. And they're thinking about the thing that they're projecting being that they're laid back, but the fact that they're then self-consciously thinking about it means that they cannot be laid back about it.
This shop, as well, is quite a forlorn sight. It looks like a massive, sad bungalow.
Yeah.
And a modern trend for sex shops has been making them female-friendly. And a lot of the female-friendly ones are quite public. Ann Summers in many town centres. There are a lot of ones around London that are quite posh and classy, but on very well-frequented streets. Whereas this seems like the slightly shady operation that is more targeted at men.
Yeah, although actually if you look through their products online, I mean, if we're talking just purely in terms of orifices,
yes,
there's certainly much to cater for the lady as well as the gentleman.
But I wonder whether a lot of those products are bought optimistically by the gentleman.
Yes, that's possibly the case. On that happy note, listeners, it's time to end this edition of Answer Me This. Oof. But don't fear, we're not going away for 3 weeks this time.
No.
We're coming straight back next week with another edition of Answer Me This.
That's how it goes.
And to do that, we need your questions. All of our contact details are on our website, AnswerMeThisPodcast.com,
where you can also find our holiday album, as well as our other albums, Jubilee and Sports Day, if you want the full set of albums, the triptych, which they were not designed to be.
That's... Oh no, are they a trilogy? Because then we're over. If they're a trilogy, the modern thing is we're over until we do a terrible American Pie the Reunion type thing.
No, we'll do a prequel trilogy,
Let's do a reboot.
course.
Of course, yes.
Not a problem.
So, of course, we can do 9, in fact, can't we? Yeah.
So until we get around, till we pollute our own cultural achievements with the prequel trilogy, please do enjoy our current trilogy of albums that is not a trilogy. It just happens to be 3 things.
Are we going to get Eugene Levy on the next one?
Eugene Levy is mentioned in the holiday album, actually.
Is he? Yeah.
And they are all available if you click albums on our website.
We made it nice and easy for you.
Indeed. And it's also very easy for you to return next week for Answer Me This 263.
Bye!